Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Haven Spanier, and I'm the Director of Student and Young Alumni Engagement at the UofSC Alumni Association. And I have the pleasure of welcoming our host today. But before I get started, I want to remind you all about the chat feature for today's event. Our hosts definitely want to answer all of your questions, so please feel free to type those in the chat throughout the event. If you don't have a lot of experience with Zoom, there should be a little button across the bottom of your screen that says chat that will pull it up. So just type those away and they will hope to get to all of your questions today. Without further ado, let's get started. First, I'd like to introduce Mitzi Curtright. Mitzi is a Midlands realtor. She's a transplant to South Carolina, a third-generation real estate agent, and a UofSC alumna. Real estate has been a part of her life since childhood, and it's not only her job, but her passion as well. She's a new mom, and she has 2 pugs that she adores, and she loves spending her weekends soaking up all that Columbia has to offer. And Paul Bryant specializes in assisting buyers and sellers in real estate transactions. His areas of expertise include Lexington, West Columbia, Lake Murray, and the surrounding areas. Paul has over 12 years of experience in the real estate industry, and he brings a unique set of tools and solutions that exceed the expectations of his many clients. He's honest, hardworking, caring, and demonstrates a level of commitment, dedication, and motivation in order to provide genuinely exceptional results. Paul prides himself in his customer service skills, knowledge of the real estate market, and special financing opportunities that may be available. So thank you so much, Mitzi and Paul, for joining us today. We are definitely looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Are we on? Okay. Hi, how are you guys? I'm Mitzi. Obviously, I'm not Paul. Oh, here we go. Okay. So we can't see you guys, but it's really nice to be here. You know, it's a fun topic for us. This is something that obviously we love doing, and anytime we get to talk to people about the opportunities and, you know, and what you can do, I mean, real estate is just, it's really fun. So we're going to start with a little market update. We're going to keep all of this pretty vague just because we don't know where you're tuning in from. If you're in, you know, Washington, D.C. or Atlanta, your market is going to look very different from Columbia, South Carolina. So, you know, bear in mind that all of this is sort of on a scale of, you know, we're going to keep things relatively vague for today. So interest rates over the last year have gotten lower. And so if you're thinking about buying, now is a really good time because we're looking, you know, depending on your credit and your debt to income and a lot of other factors at interest rates anywhere from, you know, 2.9 to 3.5%, which is really low when you look at, you know, the long term. I mean, my first house I think was at 4%, which a whole percentage lower now is not a small amount of, you know, interest. So, you know, wherever you are, depending on if you're in Atlanta, DC, California, it is still safe to say that it's a seller's market. Inventory this year has been pretty low. And so we have been talking to buyers about how to be competitive. When you find a property you like, how to move quickly, just because, you know, it's safe to say wherever you are, inventory is low. The sellers have more leverage than a buyer does right now. With those inventory levels staying low, but interest rates also being low, we've seen increased buyer demand. So we've seen more multiple offers this year than we have in years past. You know, when I meet with clients the first couple of times, I let them know, be prepared to be competitive. If you find a house you love, you know, buckle up, get ready. Oh, hey, Parker from Dallas. A lot of my good friends are in Dallas. So I'm going to turn it over to Paul, and he's going to talk about how to sort of find a lender. That's always the first step. And so he's going to kind of talk about, you know, what that looks like. So.
Awesome. Thank you guys for having us. as Mitzi mentioned, in this market, you need to be competitive. And one way of making your offer competitive, stronger, is having a pre-approval letter at the time that you're submitting this. This is a very helpful tool. It's great to do this in the beginning. One of the reasons talking with the lender will help you decide exactly how much house is right for your budget. They can outline this with you. They will help budget in taxes, insurance, escrows, all the things that you don't want any surprises the day of closing. Also, speaking with a lender prior will help determine what type of loan product is best for you, whether it's a VA, FHA, conventional. You definitely don't have to have 20% down anymore. There are a lot of options out there. So getting all of this homework out of the way before you actually start previewing and falling in love with properties is certainly the way to go. Like I said, also, with finding out how much you need for closing, your down payment, closing costs, attorney fees, all the things you'll want to budget for that day. I think for the most part, like I said, just determining your payments, your loan type, all of these in the beginning before you start the search process will be very helpful. It's the worst thing in the world to go preview a home, fall in love with it, and just to find out that it doesn't meet the budget. So helping get this out of the way in the beginning is certainly something we like to do.
And one other thing that's nice about the lender is that you can work almost backwards. You can say, my rent right now is $1,500 a month. How much house?
Right, just telling them a number, will allow them to do just that, work backwards with insurance, taxes, principal, interest, and just basically say you need to be at 225 or 230 to achieve that monthly payment, for example. So it's very helpful when you're doing an outline of your finances and this pre-approval process, for sure.
And finding a lender that will take the time to do that with you too.
Absolutely. One thing about the lender, one thing I always throw in, like a lot of things, local can be better. Having a local lender, having someone right here, not someone that's going to bounce us around from 800 number to another person to across the country to another email. A local person is very helpful with that.
A lot of what we do is problem solving. And if I have to call a lender at a 1-800 number in California that is 3 time zones behind me, it's that much more difficult. So it
creates a lot of delays in the process and definitely can get us off track for the close date. So having all that here is also helpful.
Yeah.
I think.
So just like you go about searching for a lender and finding somebody that is knowledgeable and trustworthy, the same should be said when you go to find a real estate agent. Finding the right agent is just as important as the right lender, because our job is to help you make sound financial decisions, help you find properties, help you, get a full picture. And if you end up with an agent who is subpar, it can be, not to be dramatic, it can be devastating.
Challenging. It really takes the fun out of it.
It really does. Even some of my best friends in Utah recently, they used a family friend and she wanted to write on a property. She loved this house. It's a tight market. He said, oh, it's a Saturday. Like, we don't need to write on a Saturday. We'll do it Monday. And they lost the house. And she was like, it was my house. So how do you find a good agent? You can ask questions. It's not rude to say, hey, is this your full-time job? Or, if you want to live in a really specific part of town, you can say, are you familiar with this area? How many homes have you sold in the area that I want to live in? Because,
they may know things coming that are not out there, for sure.
We can, like, I could ask Paul, like, hey, in your area, what do you have? Or, you know, where we are in Columbia, the distance between the outskirts of Lexington to Columbia, that's a huge area to cover, and it might not be someone's specialty. You can ask them how long they've been doing this. You just want to get a feel and make sure you're comfortable with this person. You shouldn't feel like you're bothering them if you're asking or wanting information.
From start to finish, kind of through the process, which we'll wrap up with that. I mean, you spend a lot of time with this person, so you want to make sure the relationship is there and that you click for sure.
For sure. One thing you can ask, which most states this is not really a thing, but you can ask someone if they're a realtor, which changes their ethical duties to you versus just a real estate agent. Fun fact, they're not exactly the same thing. One is a collective membership organization. A realtor, you know, it's an organization that you can be a part of. In South Carolina, you can be a real estate agent and not a realtor. And then there's a limited ethical duty for a real estate agent. So you should feel comfortable reaching out and talking to your real estate agent. You know, you should be able to send them things like, hey, Paul, I found a house. Can you look into it for me? We work for you, you know, we are employed at your will, essentially. But that's within reason. If it is a non-life-threatening emergency and you text me at 10 o'clock, I'm going to get back to you in the morning. I think a lot of times because our hours are so flexible, people think that we work 24/7. So I try to tell my clients upfront, you know, if we're in the middle of a negotiation, sure, I will pick up my phone at 10 o'clock, but I have a 1-year-old. So if it's just, hey, it's 11:30 at night, but I think that this house might be kind of cool to see tomorrow, I'm gonna call you back at 9 a.m. in the morning. So a good agent will help you, you know, they'll not only open the doors for you, but they'll help you find properties. They can talk to you about cool neighborhoods that you didn't know. Even I find new neighborhoods sometimes that I didn't realize were there just because I'm out looking all the time for people. They can tell you about, you know, up and coming areas. You know, essentially you just want someone you can have a dialogue with and feel really comfortable with. You know, somebody that you feel like has your best interest at heart. This is a relation, it should be a relationship and not, you know, this isn't a one-time transaction. It should be something you know, feel comfortable with. How do you start searching for a home, Paul?
So, you know, many folks are going to start with the real estate websites, Zillow, realtor.com. These are great tools for a buyer who's just previewing things, getting a list of their favorites. These sites sync with the local MLS boards periodically throughout the day. So as a buyer, you're getting information very, very quickly. It is a great place to be able to view pictures and to get that information. Just when starting though, when you begin your search parameters and you are inputting this into these websites, definitely some things to consider. Do I want new construction? Do I want a fixer-upper? What level of fixer-upper do I want? Are you looking for something that's maybe in between, only 2 to 10 years old, that just needs some new paint and new carpet? A lot of things to kind of hash out maybe before you actually get in the car and start looking at things. Knowing what you can and will not compromise on are very good tidbits of info to share with your person. A lot of times we may go preview something while you're at work if there's something specific you're looking for. Just really sitting down, taking the time of figuring out, you know, just basic needs and wants out of the property, what you're going to need in the upcoming years, the space.
And it could be a 10-minute conversation with your real estate agent of, you know, this is what I think I need.
Absolutely. And it may change during the process. Some folks start out with, they want to fix her up or with a bigger yard. And then when you get in there and you start tallying up all of the things that need to be done, you may decide, okay, let's move this back to new construction because we don't have the funds or the time to do this. So
and to bring it back to having a good agent, if I take my wish list to Paul can say, okay, let's consider, if you think you want a total remodel, have you considered how you're gonna pay for a total,
Right, how
good
much
agent-
of this is gonna cost? Let's sit down and do a cost analysis on the reno. So for sure, a lot of things to look through and get an idea of while you're exploring online and definitely coming up with your favorite list. But if it's anything you're doing in this area in the next year, you definitely, when it comes up, you need to go see it. Things are moving kind of quickly, and the days where we would wait till Saturday and go look at a handful of things doesn't really exist right now. We need to go quick, and anyway, I hope that helps. Just a list of kind of things that you want to look for while searching online.
Yeah, and like you said, things can kind of change and things can be a little fluid pictures can be really deceiving. And we always joke and say that like pictures don't tell you how a house smells. So like
Absolutely. Absolutely.
know.
Some things you won't know till you get there.
And there are certainly things that are like deal breakers, but I can tell you that every house that I've purchased in the last 5 years, I've had a list of deal breakers. I have never gotten one thing on that. I've gotten things on the list, but I've had a closet issue for years, and I keep being like, never again. And then I keep buying houses with not a lot of closet space. So things are fluid, you find the right house. But so we're going to talk about the offer process. Again, keeping it loose, just because, in Dallas, I don't know your market, your whole law, everything could be different there. But generally in, South Carolina, you write an offer, you send it, you negotiate it. Any changes need to be made in writing. So, every change to that contract is going to have a line through it, a date and initial next to it. Generally what happens is you kind of middle out. You send something, this market's a little different right now, where we're telling people especially in a multiple offer, put your best foot forward. But after they accept your offer and you're rolling forward, you usually have a window to do inspections. I know that every state has a different time window for inspections. Here, a buyer has, 10 business days to do their inspections. A buyer pays for their own inspections. And then they ask the seller for repairs, which then just becomes another negotiation of what a seller is willing to do. Y'all can negotiate it any way you want. You can say, take $3,000 off the price, I'll do all this myself. But it does just become a negotiation. And if you cannot come to terms, at least in South Carolina, you can walk. You can say, okay, I don't want to be here anymore. I'm gonna leave this contract. I'll do something else.
With no penalty through your due diligence. Gives you
a
chance to breathe till you can really check out the house and make sure it's a good fit.
And then the other, big piece is the appraisal process. Your bank will order an appraisal. It'll tell the bank the house is worth what you're willing to pay for it. An appraiser does not work. It's not a real estate agent. It's a separate entity. And generally,
we don't even speak to them generally.
We don't hear from them, so we don't taint them by saying like this, I'll give you $25 gift card to McDonald's if you'll tell me this house is worth, whatever. So we usually don't hear from appraisers. They schedule, they come through, it's pretty quick, it's pretty painless. And we either hear it appraised, or if it doesn't, then we scramble and get it fixed. You renegotiate terms at that point, but it can open every term. So an appraisal, your bank will talk you through that as well. It's kind of a big one on there. So somebody asked, we'll just kind of jump to a question real quick then. How do you suggest starting the lender-lendee relationship? You want to take this one?
Like credit union versus commercial banks. So in my opinion, in the current market, lenders are all so competitive for your business, even the credit unions compared to the larger banks. They're all going to be so competitive with the rate. A lot of times I feel like they offer the same package but put a different bow on top, whether they are referring to no origination fee, versus something tied on at the end, or where you would get a quarter of a point higher, just different things. You really have the ability to shop this. When you are shopping for an agent, you will shop for a lender. Again,
Sorry.
you go ahead.
They can do a soft pull for the most part of your credit, which doesn't ding it. So you're allowed to look at a couple different lenders.
Right.
Without them being like, she has 7 credit, it's a softer.
A lot of people are worried about shopping that because of that reason. So I'm glad you threw that in there. It's definitely not the same type of pool. It's a good idea to do that because we do want to know who can get you in the door for the least cost, of course, and most importantly, what kind of rate we can get. And I don't want to lean towards a credit union or a commercial bank because sometimes that has to do with your relationship with the institution. So that's just going to vary from case to case, but it is worth checking out both for sure.
And your cost will also vary based on your credit history, your debt to income. So it's no hard and fast rule that, a credit
This
union
person's
will
better
do
than
it.
that, right? Every person's going to be a little bit different. Worth the time to check out for sure.
I read something the other day that VA loans, somebody was saying they shopped and saved $2,500 a year because some people were starting to charge a lot of fees to create a veterans loan. And they realized they could shop it out, and they did, and they saved a bunch of money. So, and I don't think, you don't have to worry about offending anybody because that's just the nature of this. It's literally a numbers game of, you're just trying to save as much money as you can so you can buy that much more house, or,
Absolutely.
have that much more money in your pocket to buy blinds and curtains.
A lower, just a hair lower rate can afford you more square footage for sure.
I think between this year and the beginning of this year and now, I think, the way that things have dropped, you can afford, like, it bought somebody like, a couple $100 worth of more house than in the past. So, what is the typical credit score needed to purchase a house? Sort of depends.
That's going to vary on the type of loan, whether you're using a government backed loan like a FHA, or if you're going conventional or rural. I mean, it really is based on.
So the higher the credit score, the lower the interest rate. Some people will do a 580. 620, I would say, is usually that range. Anything above a 680, your rates are going to be lower.
Definitely.
But there's also you've got your credit score, but also your credit history. So the length of time. If you're brand new and young and your score's, high, but you don't have a lot of history, that'll all get factored in. But I would say 600-ish and above, depending.
For sure. That 580, 600 may get you into an opening program, but if you see that changing in the next few months, it may open up the door for something else.
And some lenders, when they talk to you, will say, if you did these 3 things, your score would jump 12 points in the next year, and then your rate would drop, 0.25%. And that would say, so a good lender is also, they'll talk you through what you can do.
Right. You don't want to be a number at their office either, because literally having someone take the time and outline this pre-qualification and your scores, that, like you said, in 6 months, you may have a whole different option that is way more appealing, and it may be better for your family then. So it's just worth taking the time to sit down and figure out.
And a lot of times, if you meet a real estate agent that you like, they can recommend local lenders that they trust and have a good relationship with. So I work with a lot of lenders. We both have what we call preferred lenders, of people that I know if something goes wrong, I can walk in their office and sit down on their desk and be like, fix it.
Put this back together.
I need you to make this right. And I need you to do it yesterday.
For sure.
Okay. So how do I know if I can afford a house with mortgage payments, insurance, et cetera? Any budgeting tips?
I think that goes back to the pre-qualification process. During that process, they're going to take your current debts and your payments, and they're going to put in principal interest, they're gonna budget in for insurance taxes on the house. They're gonna add all of this outgo up to make sure you're covered. I think it's all part of that process, and they will be able to tell you, with this car payment and this, here's what you are, here's what we can allow you each month to spend on that. And if you want that to include your insurance bill, you know, we can take that down a little bit more. So I just think it goes back to that pre-qualification process.
And, you know, there are, I mean, an online calculator is not going to be the same, but you can sort of kind of, you know, start thinking about it on your own end. If you're thinking, well, the next year I'd like to buy, you know, start kind of thinking, okay, if I needed 3 to 5% as a down payment, how can I find that room in my budget? You know, I think a lot of our, you know, mobile banking stuff right now, like I got an email from one of my credit monitoring that was like, do you know how much money you spend on subscription services every month? And I was like, I don't think I need to know, but sure, tell me. And it was like a lot. You spend a lot, like, so I was able to go through and be like, okay, do I need Disney Plus? I don't need Disney Plus. I got it. Well, I already have it.
I love this question here from, does the agent translate into English the paperwork?
They should.
They should. So most of the time, I would say, now, not always, some people will do their homework with the pre-qualification before they call me. That's rare, but it does happen. A lot of times what will happen is I have began this relationship with the buyer, and through this kind of helped outline things. I've coordinated them with the lender, so our relationship is there. And yes, I spend a lot of time explaining things that maybe the lender went through very fast, or a lot of times we can provide a more relaxed atmosphere going over this stuff than maybe sitting at the bank or doing some of their online applications.
And most lenders, even now with COVID, you should be able to go into their office and sit down. You should be able to,
absolutely.
You can call and say, I'd be more comfortable handing you sensitive financial documents
Right.
in person, please.
Right.
And the same goes for us as real estate agents. So when I meet with a buyer, we go over the contract, the buyer agency relationship that would actually make me your agent and allow me to give you advice and counsel. I go over it with my buyers line by line. And then you get a copy of it so you know what you're looking at and signing. I was going to mention, I have all of this information in flyers. So if anybody wants, you know, a flyer of costs associated with before you buy a house, you know, what does a home inspection cost? What is an appraisal cost? You know, sort of a breakdown of that. I've got, you know, this basic presentation as a flyer, and then also, okay, I found a house, I've written an offer, they've accepted it. From contract to close, what does that process look like? I've got a flyer for that too. So it's simplified, obviously.
It really does seem like a lot as we're sitting here talking about it. I can see, but it really is a pretty standard, simple process. And I'm sure, you know, like you said, broken down on a flyer, it may appear to be.
So I don't know how I would get that to y'all, but we can. I'm sure we can figure out a way that if anyone wants it, I guess it's on my website. Oh, great. Thanks, Haven. You're the best. Okay, so I will go. We don't generally go to the bank with you. You work on that yourself. I've had people come to my office that have done their parts of their mortgage applications here. Generally, those are first-time buyers, or I've had a couple that English was not their first language, and so they just wanted some support as they went through it. Because sometimes they'll ask you for things and you're kind of like, what? I don't know. What is that? So, so a while back, I bought a house based on the inspection, but a year or two later ran into huge structural problems. That's a tough one.
That is a tough one, because I mean, you're giving that due diligence period to really tear the house apart and really see how to avoid that. I guess you really want some inspectors with a very good rapport.
And it's possible too that, you know, things can change in a house over time. You know, foundation can settle. A good inspector will go far. I don't know where, does it say what state you're in? Sorry. Moving forward on that one, a good inspector, you can have a structural engineer come out or a settlement company come out. You know, they can do an inspection and make sure there's nothing happening. But once you're in and the house, if something happens, if your house got struck by lightning, for example, which is rare, but it's hard to avoid that. But a seller should disclose if they're aware of any issues. So if my husband purchased the house before marriage and I'm not on the mortgage, can I qualify as a first-time buyer?
It's going to be the type of program that the lender is offering. The first-time buyer programs have different regulations, some very strict, some a little more relaxed.
Some say every 3 years,
and
you're a first-time buyer.
Are you on the deed of that property? Because they will check those things. So I think that's gonna just also depend on the type of first-time buyer program that you're applying for.
And the first-time buyer programs can be, I mean, they're great for a lot of people, but you could probably also qualify as just a conventional loan with some sort of, you know.
They're also competitive. The conventional loan rate now is better than some of the first-time buyer rates.
Yeah. Okay. So, you know, a lot of these are, you know, the first-time buyer questions. They have some really great programs for first-time buyers, but depending on your credit and your, you know, what you need, sometimes
Also,
you
some
can
of that
do.
stuff is based on income.
Yeah.
How much is needed for down payment and so forth, whether you can find a first-time buyer 100% program. A lot of that's going to be based on household income. So just again, each situation could be very different.
Do you have any recommendations on purchasing a condo instead of a house? I live in Chicago and know that the condo HOA budget. I have a friend in Chicago who just bought a condo actually. She called with questions and she was like, "Is this?" And I was like, "I don't know your market." So condos are a little bit different, at least in South Carolina. They can be a little bit trickier just because we have, I don't know if they're probably national rules, but the owner occupancy ratio versus the rented ratio here, you're probably wanting to go conventional, but read your HOA rules and regulations if you're going to buy a condo.
That's where you
Do
start.
not skim them.
Yeah.
Read them in depth because they will tell you
what you can and can't do there.
Yeah. My friend in Chicago, she does not own her, she owns her, essentially she can't put any decking on her roof, her terrace roof, or the decking has to be removable because she doesn't actually own the roof because it's condo. So condo rules are different. They consider you only own, you know, the walls that touch your neighbor are not yours. So
water wall inside basically is what
Yeah.
you own. I think that is a personal preference, condo versus house.
And in Chicago, a good agent I think her agent talked her through the different options as far as I think he laid out like, these are the different types of condo options. These are townhouses. This is what you.
Right.
She had a great agent that walked her through it.
The condo living there is going to be very different than condo living here.
Yeah.
For sure.
Is earnest money still offered to the seller to temporarily hold your offer on a house?
Well, it's definitely not. It's held by your agent or a closing attorney. It shows good faith that you're applying for the mortgage and moving forward with that process. As far as the amount, a lot of that is going to be based on the amount of the sales price of the property. Smaller things, maybe 500 to 1,000. Larger homes could be 2,500 earnest money. That's negotiable between buyer and seller.
It
So
used to be 1% of the purchase price, which is
a lot of new construction does that.
Yeah.
New build, for sure.
and now it's sort of gone by the wayside. At least in South Carolina, our contracts have a lot of buyer protection in them.
Mhm.
And so at closing, your earnest money generally comes back to you as either part of your down payment or as part of your closing costs. You know, it gets returned to you in a way.
It's your money. I
Yeah.
wouldn't say that we offer it to the seller. We're just showing them in good faith that we're moving forward on our end. You know, your money, it's applied to your transactions cost, and anyway.
But we negotiate it. If you are a first-time buyer and your budget is tight in that you have to pay for inspections, your appraisal, and you say, I don't have a ton of extra cash, I cannot just throw $1,000 at a seller for it to sit in an account for 30 days. Then we negotiate that up front. We just say, look, they want to offer $300 in earnest money. They're serious, you know, they're pre-approved, we're moving forward. See what they say.
We've even had them, I've had where they break the earnest money into payments, selected certain dates that they bring it in. So again, negotiable between buyer and seller, for sure.
You suggest speaking to a lender before getting pre-qualified and starting the home buying process? Yes.
A lender or an agent, or just an agent, to even get an idea of maybe what you're looking for. They may know a lender who specializes in that type of loan product, who could push it out faster, get it closed faster for you. One of the two, right?
A lot of times when people call me, I say, let's get you pre-qualified before we go find a house.
Mhm.
Just because your time is valuable. You are going to take the time out of your day to go look at a property. If you fall in love with it and then realize it doesn't fit your budget,
Yeah.
every house
You're gonna hate everything.
Everything else is going to be awful. It's like Say Yes to the Dress on Bravo or whatever show it is.
Sure.
Don't try on a dress you can't afford.
That's
So how much money do you recommend a buyer to consider homes based on the ability to resell later? Again, I think this is going to come down. How do
Okay. Later. I mean, if this is more of a question of what is standard for resale?
I wish we could dig into this. I think what I'm gonna go with on this one is that a lot of this is going to come down to
what they want now.
what your long-term goals are. If you want to live in a house for 2 years, sell it, make money, that's going to look different than if you're buying a house for the next 30 years.
And you need to cater it to your family.
I personally move every couple of years. So we buy in areas that I look at, you know, the popularity of that area. I see, okay, in 3 years, this neighborhood is going to grow quickly. I buy houses that I do work on, and then we sell in a couple of years. We hope to make money. But Paul, for example, lives in a house that he's going to live in for a while, and he probably wanted the features in that house. I mean,
Sure.
To be there and
Right.
not have to worry about, you know.
Like you said, I mean, if this is a temporary house and you're doing this 2 to 3 years, so you're not just spending it on rent. Your standard 3-2, you're not gonna enclose the garage. You're not gonna do all that stuff because you just want a standard quick resale. If this is something like you said, that you're gonna be there for 20 years, I think you do what you want, and then we worry about resale then. The market's gonna change.
Yeah, we can't predict the future.
Right.
I mean, there are certain areas in town right now that I'm telling people, like, this is a popular area where infrastructure is being developed, and they are doing a lot here.
I mean, we've watched Condo, Earlwood, all,
A lot of areas in
North.
Columbia, yeah. And I think in the last couple of years here, our growth has been crazy. I think our median or average around here went from 186 when I first moved here to like over 200 now for Columbia. So, yeah, it'll come down to kind of a personal preference, I think.
Yeah, how long you're actually gonna be there.
Yeah.
So, and again, I think sharing that plan in the beginning with someone, who's been in the industry, they really can guide you and maybe share with you some upcoming neighborhoods that would profit in a couple of years or
Yeah, if you think you want new construction, but you have to sell in 6 months and they're still building in that neighborhood, no.
sure,
I'll tell you up front,
Right.
don't do,
right.
it's gonna change, but, okay, how are we doing on time? Is that it for questions? I think that's, if you guys want to use this information, if you need anything from us, again, I think part of our thing is just we're resources. So
Mhm,
whatever
absolutely.
if you guys are just like, hey, I loved Paul and I want to ask Paul about.
And you should.
If Paul's a delight, but I think that we're both here as just, I personally just really enjoy.
I love talking about
I
it.
like talking about it.
Yeah, any questions, for sure.
And wherever, you are in this process, if you're just like, I just want to ask someone
Mhm.
questions about, do you have a calculator for rehab? That's what we're here for.
Absolutely.
That's what we like. So thank you guys.
Thank you, guys.
Well, thank you so much, Mitzi and Paul. This was so great. So much helpful information. I'm sure it was a great help to everybody on. Thank you to everyone who joined us today. We'll be sending the event recording and survey email within the next few days, and I'll attach some of those resources that they discussed as well for you all. So keep an eye out on your email for that. If y'all are interested in joining us for any other events, you can visit uofscalumni.org/events to see what we have coming up. But thank you again, Mitzi and Paul. Really appreciate y'all. Bye, everyone.
Thank you guys so
Bye,
much.
thank you.
Bye.